Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Wellness Education Network. In today's episode, we are joined by John Dickson. He has an inspiring story, especially one of going through the majority of his life with an undiagnosed mental health condition, most notably bipolar type 2. Have you gone through a lot of your life with an undiagnosed mental health condition? Let us know in the comments if you have and what age you were when you found out what your mental health condition was and when you received that diagnosis. He's also got some other interesting stories in regards to technology and how Google really helped him along the way in order to find some of the resources that he was looking for, and as well as the questions to ask his doctor. In this episode, you'll see certain images pop up. These will be the resources that he's talking about. It's things such as Mind Over Mood, The Mindful Way Through Depression, Lakeridge Health, CMHA, as well as the Bare Room app. You'll see these pop up throughout the video, and the reason you'll see that is because it's for you, so that you can benefit. And that's something that we believe here at the Wellness Education Network, is that you should be able to have access to the resources and know exactly what they are so that you can find them. And if they work for John, maybe they can work for you. You should also know that we are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with these organizations or products or books. It's not a paid promotion in any way, but we do believe that you should have the knowledge and the information needed. If you were to buy the books or go to those organizations for help, we do not benefit financially in any way, but you benefit, and that's what we care about, because we know what it's like to be well, and we want the same thing for you. And what's better than a version of you that's well? So if these things help you change your path so that you can become the person that you want to be, then that's great. That's great for everyone. So without further ado, let's dive in. And we have another episode of the Wellness Education Network, and I am joined by John Dickson. How are you today, John?
I'm good, Jimmy.
I'm so excited to have you here. You have such a great story, and there's going to be a lot of value and knowledge imparted upon the audience regarding your journey. And so let's just start with your beginning, John. When was it?
2014.
Yeah. So what happened in 2014?
At that point, I had been unemployed for about a year. I was living by myself. I was becoming increasingly isolated.
Okay.
I had stopped visits from my son because I did not want him to see me in the state that I was. My whole world was becoming increasingly bleak.
And was it due to the employment or unemployment, I should say?
No, that would be too easy. It certainly didn't help.
Fair enough.
Statistically speaking, a single white male over particular age who's unemployed, living by himself, statistics say that if that person is at risk of suicide, I ticked all those boxes. But many people do. What was different, and I did not at that time know, was that I was living with undiagnosed bipolar disorder, specifically bipolar 2 disorder, and obstructive sleep apnea.
Okay.
So those two things played havoc with my mind, my moods, and just my general life.
Yeah, I would imagine. And just for the audience, are you able to clarify specifically what bipolar type 2 is? Because I know there's type 1 and type 2.
Yeah, there's three different
Is there three?
bipolar. Yeah.
Okay.
And mine is the one in the middle.
Okay.
Typically, most people associate bipolar with the old terminology of manic depression. You have periods of mania and you have periods of depression. Bipolar type 2, for a long time, was considered less dangerous.
Okay.
That has undergone a revision in most medical studies in the last 5-6 years. And it's now recognized that it probably is as dangerous as bipolar 1.
Okay.
The difference being is that you do not have a manic episode. You have what is called a hypomanic episode. And you just don't get to the same dangerous high.
Okay.
However, when you have a depression, the depression for bipolar type 2 tends to be longer and deeper
Okay.
and more frequent.
So, and if I understand about this hypomania, this is a period of, from my perspective and from what I've learned, a period of a lot of productivity.
Certainly, it begins that way.
Okay. So that must be the hypo part.
It starts off with an elevated sense of self-esteem.
Okay.
Let me talk about me.
Sure.
When I walk, I am more erect.
Okay. More confident.
My shoulders are back.
Okay.
My esteem is high. My thinking is fast.
Yeah.
And complete. And that's how it begins.
Okay.
As it continues, irritation creeps in. And the irritation creeps in because, one, people cannot keep up with my thinking.
Yes.
And
And you're
then
thinking so clearly and so well in that state for that period of time.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the other reason irritation creeps in is because the thoughts continue to increase in speed and you can no longer hold on to them. So now you're stepping outside of feeling good into feeling frustrated on top of that good.
Done.
For me, sleep becomes an issue. When I am hypomanic, I can sleep 2 hours or less.
Okay.
Not uncommon for me. And those 2 hours or less can be spread over several days.
Is that because your mind is just spinning in ideas and thoughts and things that you want to get done and can't accomplish and all of that, and thinking about tomorrow and the day after tomorrow and next month?
That's part of it, but there's also the real physical acceleration. Everything about you is buzzing. Everything about you is accelerated. Everything about you. Remember, I was talking about posture changes.
Yeah.
It's throughout your whole system. Everything is
That's
that
incredible.
much more active.
Wow.
And so at its worst, I was in Sydney by myself. I had gone to Australia to visit my brother, and then I did a side trip by myself to Sydney. I am not comfortable with heights. I had an injury as a child that heights is not good.
Yeah.
But I was convinced that I could go on the tour of the Sydney Harbour Bridge and scale up the Harbour Bridge without any concern for my fear of heights. And I came real close. But I knew if I did that, it would not be good because that fear of heights would probably kick in, and the combination of the two would put me in real danger.
Yeah.
But I kept wanting to.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I just put myself in a place where I could not put myself at that risk.
Okay.
That's the difference in a way between hypomania and mania.
Okay.
Mania, I would not take that safety step. I would simply go and do it.
Oh, just go. Yeah. Okay. There's
that little niggling safety cap.
Yeah. Yeah. And at least you have the option to put the safety on or off. Like there's still that mechanism in your head that can say it might be weak, but it can say, maybe not. Let's really think about this. Let's do a pros and cons list.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're doing that, chances are it's not going to be manic because you haven't really stepped over that boundary.
Yeah. Right. So then that's the difference between bipolar 1 and 2. So at this point in your life, when you're in this, it's fair to say that maybe you're experiencing a depression because you're in the withdrawals of undiagnosed, untreated sleep apnea, as well as a bipolar treatment or undiagnosed bipolar disorder?
I had been slipping into a deep depression.
Yeah.
And like any depression or even any hypomanic episode, when you slip into them, they're gradual. Now, one of the things about undiagnosed depression is that studies have shown that over time, as you enter into each episode of depression, they tend to become longer and they tend to become darker. That was after, this is 2014, so I was 50, so that would have been about 30, 35 years of undiagnosed living with this. So at that point, duration was very long and darkness was very dark.
So then what happened next?
I attempted suicide.
Okay. All right.
That's it. I attempted suicide.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate that I was discovered. I was taken by ambulance to the hospital. I was treated. And then the next day I was sent home.
So you had this mental health crisis where you tried to leave this planet permanently and went to the hospital, was treated, and within, is it fair to say within 24 hours, within 32 to 48, were released?
Oh, 24.
24? Yeah. I'm not going to go down that road, but all I can say is that's highly unusual in my experience. I've had one attempt. After that, I learned to voluntarily put myself into the hospital, go into emergency or whatever it might be. And I've done that 6 or 7 times, and every time, including the attempt, I've been there approximately 2 to 4 weeks. The average stay is about 2.5 to 3. So from my personal experience, that's highly unusual. What are you doing? Like, where did you go? Like, were you home when you were found? Is that where?
Yes.
Okay. So you were found at home. You went to the hospital. You received treatment. Were released within 24 hours, which is highly unusual, And is it safe to say that you're back home now?
I had a brief moment of clarity.
Okay.
And recognized that it's probably not safe for me to be alone in my home again.
Okay.
So
reasonableness came.
Well, brief. The key
Fair
word.
enough.
And so I spoke to my parents, and they had enough space in their home where I could be there.
Okay.
Now, I used the word brief deliberately because even though that clarity was there, I was still cognitively very impaired.
And at the hospital, what was the treatment that you received? And did they give you a diagnosis or anything, or like what?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, other than the treatment in the ED, the emergency department, nothing.
So not a mental health look at all. No? Okay. So I guess a physical look over your body to see if you're functioning and all your vitals are working, and
I'm going to say, not really. Not really.
I'm trying.
The reality
truth is the truth.
Yeah, the reality was that when the hospital had a place for me to go with parents, they were quite happy for me to go.
Okay. So then
it's 10 years ago, and things have changed quite a bit since then in some cases. Not all.
Yeah. I do want to emphasize that this is not what typically happens in this particular situation. So you're able to go back home. That's a little bit of wisdom in there saying, my home probably isn't the best place for me right now. And a conversation with your parents happened, and they were able to take back their 50-year-old son and put them, I guess it was a bedroom or a basement apartment.
They've got a fairly sizable finished basement that I could be there in. And they also had a computer.
Okay.
computer was critically important.
How?
I was in the emergency department. I'm fading in and out of consciousness, and people are battling to save my life.
Okay.
And as people are doing that, the conversations are happening all around me. Some words are picked up, some words are not. There's things happening. And I was fortunate that three of the words that I could hear were mental health and mindfulness.
Okay.
Now, I had no idea what any of that meant as far as how did it apply to me, or even if it did apply to me, that could have been for somebody else in the emergency department for all I
Yeah.
knew. Those were words that I overheard. And so the computer, I could Google as a friend.
Yeah.
So I would Google things just to see what I could learn about those things.
Yeah.
So Googling my mental health, and I added to that agency, just see if there's anything that might help. And I discovered the Canadian Mental Health Association.
Okay.
I Googled mindfulness, and there was a book that I discovered. I'm just looking for it on my bookshelf. Yeah, it's called The Mindful Way Through Depression.
Ah. Okay.
Only because I had mindfulness, and again, because of Google, maybe I was depressed. I could see certain
Yeah.
collections of symptoms that seemed to describe how I was at that time.
Yeah. You can make a connection.
Yeah. So, and that can combine the two. So, hey, it's got to be.
Yeah.
And then, of course, once I had a name of the Canadian Mental Health Association, I could look up their telephone number,
Yeah.
call that number, and those things all together began a healing process.
Oh, delightful. So where was the Canadian Mental Health Association located for you? Was it close to you or was
Not
it?
at all.
Yeah. Okay. So it was a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. I did not have a vehicle. And even if I did, I was in no condition to drive. I was not safe for myself or anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I knew that. And the closest CMHA office to me was about a 45-minute drive from where my parents were.
Okay.
Now, that particular CMHA office has changed quite a bit over the years. I lived in a rural part of my community, and they have established satellite offices in more rural parts of the community, recognizing that not everybody lives in the downtown cores where the cities are.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So that was something that happened. Then, as part of reaching out to them, unfortunately, which I did not expect, at that time, you approach them, and in essence, you're applying to be helped.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You have to be a client of theirs, which is free of charge. And it's like an intake. So they get all your information,
It was
all
different.
your pertinent information.
It was different then than it is now.
Okay.
Very different, unfortunately. And so that intake process at the time took about a month.
Oh, okay.
And the good fortune I had is that the young lady that I spoke with when I did those initial approaches maintained a daily communication with me just to keep me in the loop, because I was very clear in saying I needed that level of support, because I was a danger to myself. That had not gone away. Even though the hospital had washed its hands of me, there was more that needed to be done.
That needed to be done. Yeah. And so you're essentially just, I ain't gonna say advocating for yourself, just or highly recommending or strongly recommending, please keep in touch with me. I need this, whatever it is that you guys do. I know I need some of it or all of it.
Yeah.
Is that-
Oh, absolutely. My parents took me to their doctor, and when he learned of the circumstances, he agreed to take me on as a patient, and he was quite helpful, but not a psychiatrist. So his expertise was as a general practitioner, so he had some semblance of what might be going on, and prescribed the medication that helped. It was a basic antidepressant.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't comfortable with prescribing anything more than the basics.
Yeah. Yeah.
So clearly someone who attempts suicide needs some assistance.
For sure.
I didn't dispute that in any way, shape, or form. I knew I needed assistance.
Yeah.
I just didn't know where to get it, how to get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let me explain that for a moment, if I may. Bipolar disorder is all about mood and mood fluctuations. Everybody goes through mood fluctuations.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you're a teenager, some of those mood fluctuations are because of changing hormones and changing body shape and peer pressures.
Yeah.
When you're an adult, it's often because of employment stresses. If you have a family, it's because of the nature of a growing family.
Yeah.
And meeting your financial obligations to support that family.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was going on with my mood changes.
Yeah.
That when I was stressed, then things were not always rosy.
Yeah.
But I did not know at that time that there was a deeper reason for it.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I did not know to approach anyone to find answers.
You wouldn't even know what to ask.
Exactly.
Outside of, I did this thing and I don't know why I did this thing. Please help.
Yeah. So when I did something drastic, and there's nothing more drastic than attempting suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then, okay, there's more going on here. There's something else.
Yeah.
Similarly with the obstructive sleep apnea, I would wake up in the morning with a headache. Did I know that was because of the sleep apnea? No, because I didn't know that it even existed.
Yeah. And people with sleep apnea don't know they have sleep apnea. Nobody knows that they snore. It's the outside world pointing to you and saying, hey, you snore. And you, I guess so. But you need outside confirmation to verify if that's true.
Yeah. And not just snoring, but the volume of the snoring.
Oh, yeah.
And more importantly than that is that there's also pauses in breathing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So myself, for instance, over the course of an hour of sleep, roughly a third of that time, I am not breathing.
Oh, that's awful.
And we know that when the brain is oxygen deprived, it gets damaged.
Yeah.
So every night for decades, my brain is deprived of oxygen. So there is an effect that happens. Add to that the mood fluctuations of bipolar disorders. Now looking back, I can say, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But 10 years ago, I didn't know that.
No, you were on what's known now, a healing journey, a recovery journey, a discovery as to what's going on. And you're literally in the middle of your life, right? And found CMHA, you've got a basic antidepressant. You are starting to get support or any form of support. What's going on after that?
The support that I was getting was quite limited.
Okay.
Necessarily because I'm still, my new doctor is sending a referral for psychiatrist. There's wait, and the wait I was told could be a year. That's the way the system was then and still is, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is a long wait.
And part of it was also I needed therapies. I needed somebody to talk to, and I needed it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But CMHA, things are different. I want to emphasize how CMHA, the branch that I was at, operates today is very different from how it operated then.
Yeah.
And at that time, they were reluctant to recommend any service that I could approach because I was not yet a CMHA client.
Oh, okay. They were still waiting for that process to follow. True.
So it becomes a liability issue. You don't want to
Yeah.
recommend something to somebody who's not a client in case there's blowback.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
totally get it.
Yeah.
At the time, I wasn't as patient
Yeah.
as I am today, or as understanding. That's what was going on. And so I had to wait for that becoming a client to take place. And that took about a month.
Okay.
Once I was, then here are the treatment options. And they gave me, I could go and see a family service close to me. I could go to another agency that could give me some form of group support. So I'm saying yes, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I would go, and once again, you're being interviewed. You're doing the intake process. You're being interviewed. And I'm thinking to myself, I attempted suicide.
Mm-hmm.
What more do you need to know beyond that?
Yeah.
That, from my point of view, that ought to have been the key that opened the door to treatment.
It's the key that you used for sure. And I completely agree with that statement. It's hard to see how outsiders look at it or the professionals look at it and the lens that they see it through. So what's moving on forward from here? You're receiving a little bit more supports from CMHA.
What it is also a decision on my part to be more open. Obviously, when I was going through bleakness and wasn't telling anybody
Hmm.
about the bleakness, and I didn't know that I could tell people because I didn't know what it was. But
Yeah.
when I became more aware,
Mhm.
and okay, now I know, and now I have a better sense. I needed to tell people what it was, what I
Yeah.
experienced. So I needed to become open to that. And I did that because I sensed that was necessary to get the proper treatment.
So when you're talking about being open, I sense that you're talking about being more honest in regards to what's going on internally in regards to your emotions, like a level of transparency and authenticity and vulnerability, and saying screw it to everything else. I need to learn this in order for me to get well.
Yeah, you can't get treatment, proper treatment, correct treatment for bipolar disorder if your psychiatrist does not know you are bipolar.
Yeah.
I talked a moment ago about the antidepressant. The antidepressant is treating one facet
Yeah.
of bipolar disorder. And it's not even doing that well because I'm still not healed.
Mhm.
There's still more to be done, but it gives me a little bit of stability.
Yeah.
But there's more. And then I described my trip to Australia and what happened in Sydney, and that filled in that other part of the equation, which gave my psychiatrist the information he needed
Yeah.
to significantly adjust my medication to help with both fluctuations of mood. So
Right.
to lop off some of the high and bottom out some of the low.
So get you in a more balanced emotional state. Is that fair?
That's how he would describe it. Yeah.
How would you describe it? How would you describe it?
I don't know that it's more balanced. It's less severe.
Oh, okay.
You still, I still go through mood change, but it's not with the same spike up and down.
Right. Okay. So maybe it takes the length of time off or
But the
the
hypermania,
highs and the lows.
I still have, how can I explain this? One of the things that happens when I have hypomania is, and this is not uncommon for anybody with a bipolar disorder,
Yeah.
is that you want to spend money.
Yeah.
And so what that impulse is still there.
Okay.
And the obsessing over, for me, it can be technology, wanting the next shiny gadget.
Yeah.
that impulse, that obsession is still there. The
Okay.
medication has not taken that away. What it has enabled me to do is to window shop. So I don't have to spend the money. I can load a shopping cart and then I can remove it from the shopping cart and try to ease that desire.
Hmm.
Doesn't work all the time,
Yeah.
but some of the time.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways that the medications help with the hypomania. But the hypomania is there, it's just not to the same extreme.
Fair enough.
Similarly, I still have periods of bleakness, melancholia. They're not to the same depths as they once were,
Mhm.
and not to the same length of duration, but they're
Right.
still there, and that has not stopped. What also has not stopped is suicidal ideation. And that, unfortunately, is not uncommon for people who have attempted suicide. It is very easy to imagine scenario after scenario about your own death.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean it's going to happen. On my part, there is no plan,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that you don't think about it.
Yeah. The thoughts still come.
And they come often unbidden and definitely at times that you do not expect.
Sure. Are they strictly during those bouts of mood, or is it just
Oh, it can be anytime.
anytime? All right. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And in my
So
case, very vivid.
so it's specific in regards to you, but not specific in regards to the moods that you experience due to being bipolar. It
Correct.
anytime, any day, whether or not you're hypomanic or in a depressive state.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. So then,
And I think it's fair to say that is probably more because of having had attempted suicide than because of the bipolar disorder.
hmm,
People who have attempted suicide tend to experience suicidal ideations more.
yeah,
That's what all the studies that I've looked at support.
hmm, yeah, I can understand that. So where are you going now in regards to your journey?
I've had a couple of sections with Lakeridge Health for day treatment programs.
Mhm.
The first was back in 2015, 16, basically about 6 months or so for a psychiatrist because they had hired some new ones on board. So my 1 year wait was reduced. Then I was very happy at that.
Yeah.
But prompting the psychiatrist to do more than prescribed medicine.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Prescribing medicine, it's a wonderful thing. Don't misunderstand me. For some people, not
Well,
all. And for me, it was helpful, but it was not addressing the underlying problems.
were you even wise enough to understand that you needed more than just medication? Like, I remember in my journey at the beginning, I wasn't that much at that time. I was much younger, 28 or so, but I didn't have the wherewithal to think, do I need to do more? I don't understand that. I thought this should be the cure.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Um, I was still using Google
Okay.
because my relationship with that initial psychiatrist was not good.
Okay.
So, I was stuck with him, given
Uh,
the nature of the system. But given that problem, I wanted to do more for myself than simply rely on him. If you're not comfortable or you're not trusting of your doctor, then you're going to want to do more for yourself. And that's just part and parcel of it.
I see.
That's what I did. So I used Google, and Google was very clear. Talk therapies do more than medications. And so there's all kinds of books. Mind Over Mood is an excellent book to help people deal with depression and challenging negative thoughts and so on and so forth. Having and using mood charts to track your moods, There's some wonderful apps that I found to help me understand the fluctuations of my mood. So I found lots of stuff on my own.
Fascinating.
My psychiatrist was not giving me it.
Was he giving you the talk therapy option?
Well, I had to ask him.
Okay.
One day I'd had enough of not getting anywhere, and I specifically said, "Is there more that can be done?" And I asked, "What cognitive behavioral therapy?" I said,
Yeah.
"What about dialectic behavior therapy? What mindfulness-based cognitive therapy?" I asked him, "Do these things exist here?
Yeah.
And can you do something?" And
Yeah.
so based on me asking, he sent me to the day treatment program. If I
Okay.
had not asked, it would not have happened.
So because of your Google searching and being unsatisfied with your psychiatrist led you down this road to learn more about different types of therapies. Out of curiosity, how long were your visits with your psychiatrist? Were they 10 to 15 minutes? Sometimes they can be like 50 minutes, which is the typical talk therapy time.
If on a good day,
Uh-huh.
10
Okay.
minutes.
Okay.
Typically,
Yeah.
his meetings, 5 or less.
Okay. So he wasn't, because I've had psychiatrists in the past, and I've received that 50-minute to 50-minute when I've gone. So it's fascinating to see the difference that's happening here because you're obviously not given those talk option.
Yeah, psychiatrists, for lack of a better word, are dispensers of pills. You're talking with a psychologist, or you're talking with social workers, maybe talking with a nurse practitioner in this day and age who is trained in mental health treatment, but rarely a psychiatrist.
Yeah. So because of your unsatisfaction that led you to the day treatment program and a recommendation for that, what was that program? What were they doing in that program at that time around 2015?
There was some group interaction, but it was very limited. It was more group instruction. So you went to class.
So how long was that program?
The first time I took the day treatment program, which was, as I said, in 2015, 2016, was 5 days a week from 9 till 4,
Mhm.
and it lasted about 3 months.
Okay.
We learned about personalities. We learned there was some physical activity. That one day we played balloon volleyball, which was
Yeah.
we did some art classes, but it was basically a classroom format. So we didn't do much talking. We did a lot of learning, and we were given a ton of handout.
Yeah.
After my hypomanic episode, when I visited Australia and specifically Sydney, I approached my psychiatrist, and it was a different psychiatrist at this time, and requested that I be re-enrolled in the day treatment program. One, because the diagnosis had been updated to reflect what had happened.
What was the diagnosis given to you prior to the update?
Just major depressive disorder.
Okay, no problem. Majorly depressed. Let's get an update on this now.
Yeah.
Um,
And that, by the way, just as a little side note, order to have any of the bipolar disorders, you must have had a major depressive episode. That is common. If you're hypomanic, it's bipolar 2. If you're manic, it's bipolar 1. If you're not quite hypomanic, but you're something else, there
Mhm.
is another variation of bipolar. I'm not as familiar with that because it doesn't specifically apply to me.
That's fair.
And typically, bipolar 2, you have to have had 2 or more hypomanic episodes. For bipolar 1, only 1 manic episode.
So what's the time frame that they're looking at when they're asking for 2? Is it within your lifetime or like within 2 years or?
No, it tends to be a lifetime.
Okay.
You may not have it.
Mhm.
That's why with bipolar 1, you may only have one manic episode, but that manic episode likely had you land up in hospital, in jail,
Mhm.
or job, blah, blah, blah. And then
Yeah.
the consequences are extreme.
Okay.
The conduct that led you to that is also extreme. So after my trip to Australia, the diagnosis was modified to reflect what I had experienced and what I had shared with my psychiatrist. I wanted to go back to the day treatment program to refresh my skills. I was in
Yeah.
a better mindset. I was more cognitively able to learn at that point than I had been 5 years earlier, 6 years
Oh.
earlier.
So then between the first day treatment and now we're going 5 years, is that right?
Yeah, there was 5 or 6 years between the 2 day treatments.
So we're
Uh,
around the year 2019 at this time.
yeah.
Is that fair? Yeah. Okay.
Um, but again, I had to ask.
Yeah.
I had to ask for, can I be re-enrolled? Here's why I want to be enrolled. I had to justify it. And then after that happened, I approached my psychiatrist again and I said, look, this is wonderful. I've had all of these group experiences. I've learned a lot, but I still think there's something missing. I said, I have never had any one-on-one counseling to explore my issues in depth.
Now,
So
that's a very well said sentence. Is Google helping you in regards to slowly over time, over years, being able to say and formulate exactly what you need? Because you're receiving treatment as you go along and you're Googling things and getting information that way, but nowhere along the lines, it sounds like is somebody prodding you and saying, try this, or have you ever thought about this, or have you ever, it seems like this is like a solo adventure or mission for you. Am I right?
yeah, it's me who's doing the prompting.
Yeah.
Uh, it's me who's doing the advocating. I will admit, in fairness, at this point, I'm not relying on Google as much as just a recognition of what I perceive to be my own needs. I learned enough through the day treatments that there were other issues.
Okay.
Like, yeah, having bipolar 2 disorder is not good. Living with obstructive sleep apnea is not good. But there are
Mhm.
also social issues, uh,
Okay.
issues in how I was raised and things of
Yeah.
that sort that factor in as well. It's a package deal, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I wanted to address those things as well. I wanted to become more well-rounded.
Okay.
So let's deal with those things.
Yeah.
So again, I look into the options that exist and I reach out and I run into problems. So
What types of problems?
in 2019, I was prescribed a different medication for my bipolar 2 disorder.
Okay. So medication change.
Yeah. And the medication was changed because the original bipolar medication was not having the desired effect.
Okay.
I was going through what we call a rapid switching. That's not the right phrase now, but that's neither here. Basically, my moods were changing daily.
Oh, well,
Changing over the course of the day. I could start off a day with feelings of grandiosity, and I would be ending that day in deep despair, crying. And that was
wow.
happening day after day.
Oh my God.
Something was not right.
Yeah.
So I approached my psychiatrist. We agreed on a new medication, and that new medication had me being taken to the emergency department because of the side effects I was experiencing. That led to a rapid withdrawal from the medication,
Okay.
and which then, when I say rapid, over the course of a day, I'm He's just too risky for my health. So stop. Fine. I stopped. And within a day or two, I'm in full-blown hypomania.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But that was necessary. I understood it.
Yeah.
I knew why it was necessary. But the psychiatrist and I worked. We found another medication. We needed to wait a bit for the other one to wean itself out of my system. And when it had, we started something new. You did the usual slow increase in dosage until we get to the proper level, the therapeutic level.
During that time, that's a dangerous time for you and possibly your bank account during that time. Are you being put into the hospital for X period of time just for observation? Are you making this more and more aware to, I'm still assuming that you're living at home at the time or with your parents at the time. Do you have
Oh,
a support system of some sort and you're able to say, hey, listen, this is happening. Don't let me go outside. I can't use the bank account or whatever it is. This is what's going to happen because this is a hard time for you.
one, I'm no longer at my parents'. By this point, I am living on my own.
Okay.
My biggest supports are CMHA. I continue to be a client of CMHA to this day. And in fact, it's through them that I have my current housing, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
And my son.
Mm.
Oh, I have another strong relationship with a friend who lives several hours away,
Mhm.
but I'm on my own during all
Okay.
this. I'm talking with my psychiatrist.
Yeah.
I'm keeping my psychiatrist in the loop. And the good thing is my income is modest, so there's not much to blow.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Oh, yay. $20.
But it wasn't that type of, certainly when the moods were doing the rapid changes, the daily changes,
Yeah.
that was not a factor at all. I just was so all over the place.
Yeah.
Once it became the full-blown hypomania, I was okay with it because I knew why it happened.
Okay.
I knew it was better for me that it happened, and I knew that I was wanting more, and I was researching how could I get it.
Okay.
I wanted a different form of treatment, so I'm reaching out to people to say, okay, here's what I want to do. Here's why I want to do it.
Yeah.
They then did the usual intake thing, and I'm having people tell me, no, we're not interested. No, we're not interested. No, we're not interested. Well, what do you mean you're not interested? One of them told me, you're hypomanic and we want you to be symptom-free for a year. Now think about that. If I'm symptom-free for a year, do I really need your service anymore?
I know.
And I'm saying, I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to do whatever you need to be done, but I also recognize I need this treatment. I need more than what I have received. I need something one-on-one. I leave that to you as a professional
Mhm.
to design whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'll do it.
Yeah.
I discovered a program that was associated with Lakeridge Health. And so I asked my psychiatrist about it. He said, I haven't heard about it.
Mhm.
So I sent him the web link. I sent him the form for the application, the referral. I sent him whatever he needed. And then I waited to hear back. And I was very fortunate that I was approached. I did again, yet another intake, and then COVID hit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
That puts a lot of things on pause.
the therapist who I was assigned was then reassigned to help deal with COVID at the hospital. Get it? So things were on hold. And then when that settled and she was back to do her therapies, I was put in a group.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So a group therapy at this time.
Which I specifically had said I did not want because I had been in group therapies.
Yeah.
But groups are cost effective.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So if you're in a group of 5, 6 people, that's 5 or 6 people being treated at once. as opposed to 5 or 6 people being treated one after the other. Cost effective? Was it going to help me? No. Been there, done that.
Yeah, you probably got as much out of it as you could.
Yes. What was happening is that I was doing the work. The other members of the group were not.
Yeah. So you're experiencing growth.
Well, I was willing to do the work. The growth had not yet happened. I was willing to do the work to get growth, to become more well-rounded. But it takes work. You cannot do this without putting in the time doing the work. You have to fill out the damn forms. It's as painful as it is, and it's exceedingly painful to dredge up all that shit. But you have to do the work if you want to heal. And I was in a group where nobody else was willing to do that.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate that the therapist recognized that I was going to be held back if I'm the only guy who's doing the work, and we keep having to rehash day one again and again because nobody else has passed day one yet.
Yeah.
And so what she did is she set up a time for her and I just to be one-on-one.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. And so we started from the beginning again, just to make sure that, we were clear on where we began, and we went through the program until its conclusion.
And was that helpful for you?
It was. Again, it gave me more tools that I can turn to if I need. It gave me deeper insights into myself, which I kind of already knew, but like everybody, you're kind of not looking at it all that well either.
Yeah. And
just look at that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Part of us doesn't want to really acknowledge it or view it for exactly what it, you want to put a polite spin on it or make it a little bit nice. And when you really see it for what it is, that's when the real healing can happen.
Some of it was extremely ugly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody wants to see that ugliness that is part of their history.
Just delving into this one-on-one, what kinds of things are you like? Is this a talk therapy? Are you finally at this point that you've been looking at? Is it some kinds of forms of cognitive behavioral therapy that you've learned about online, or dialectical behavioral therapy? What are some things that are happening right now with this one-on-one therapy?
It's actually called Mindfulness Integrated Cognitive Behavioral Therapy.
Ooh, it sounds fascinating.
It's not the same as mindfulness cognitive behavioral therapy. The word integrated is the key. And one of the components of it is to bring the Buddhist tradition back into the mindfulness. Mindfulness, for the most part, is a secular Buddhism.
Okay.
And so the creator of Mindfulness Integrated CBT believes that you cannot properly make it secular. For mindfulness to truly work, that spiritual component is a necessary component.
Okay.
So you're doing it from that lens. And then the exercises that you do are very specific to maintaining that spiritual lens. And so the way that you would progress through the body and body scans, meditations are very different from the MCBT stuff.
Right.
So it was very different in that sense. Was there talk? Yes. But the bulk of the work was you do it by yourself. So the conversation was more directed to what did you learn? What questions do you have? Where are you having trouble? And here's what you do next week.
Okay. So you're getting what I like to call homework.
Well, you're getting a ton of homework.
Yeah, you're getting homework in order to look at it and practice it and come back with your results for the next week and so on. Yeah.
So it gave me turns out it gave me what I needed. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was probably what I needed.
So I'm very familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm a big fan of it. Mindfulness, there's lots of different types of mindfulness. A form of mindfulness that I am most familiar with is that where you're just meditating for about 10 minutes and as thoughts come into your mind or emotions come into your mind, you're just not worried about it. You're just focusing on your breath. If you're worried about lunch, you might just say, okay, lunch, I know you exist, but this is my 10-minute. And cognitive behavioral therapy is saying, I have this emotion. Why is this emotion? What's it attached to? What's the thought it's attached to? And is this thought an accurate representation of what's actually happening? That person doesn't like me. I don't like that person doesn't like me. I'm going to go and do something to make that person like me more. And so that's like the cognitive behavioral therapy. How can you describe to the audience mindful integrated cognitive behavioral therapy?
One, the approach for mindfulness is different.
Okay.
When a thought comes, there's a recognition that the thought is there. You would sit with that thought without judgment for a time, and then you would allow yourself to release it.
Okay.
And when you are sitting with it, part of that is also, where did the thought come from? Where did it grow from? So that's part of the mindfulness. It's a little bit more in depth than a 10-minute. None of the meditations in the MICBT are 10-minute.
Okay.
None.
That could be mindfulness.
It wants to give you the time to do work. The body scan is to allow you to find where are the stressors in the body. So you will go to the various stressor points. You will then meditate on trying to just relax that area, but also to learn about your body to know, okay, there's stress that happens there. So when you feel something later on, after a project was completed, was my shoulder sore? Yeah, it is. Oh, now I know why, because such and such is going on in my life.
Yeah.
I look at it. What is the stress? Why is it stressful? What can I do to address it? And then with the CBT side of it, you are looking at you're looking at the emotion, not the thought.
Okay.
The key being that the emotion matters more than the thought, because the thought may be untrue.
Okay. Yeah.
The emotion is not. The emotion is very real.
It wants you to act.
And what is the emotion that you're experiencing? How can you cope with that emotion? So you then learn the methodologies to better address the emotion. Find out what the root of that emotion happens to be. Whereas a CBT formally is, you want to find the root of the thought. You want to find the core value that led to that thought in the first place. So you can then filter it down and replace, over time and practice, replace that thought with an antonym. The MICBT is more, you're going to have the thoughts no matter what. And nobody is going to be able to stop them because thoughts are instantaneous. But what you can do is work on the emotions that such thoughts generate.
What are the results that you've seen from that type of therapy? Or what are the results that you're getting from that type of therapy?
For me, it was a better understanding of my body.
Okay. Was that important to you? That was important to you?
I didn't think it was.
Okay. Oh, that's great. That's great.
Remember, this is what I needed, not what I wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wanted the talk therapy side of things.
Yeah.
What I got was this, and it turned out to be what I needed because it gave me something that was not what I expected, but it's allowed me to be more comfortable with my emotions and more comfortable with my body, which at my age is doing, the usual thing that a body does at someone my age. It starts to decline in ways that you feel aches and pains when
Yeah.
you don't want to.
Yeah. So then being able to sense stressors or some kind of physical activity within your body and link it to some kind of emotion or thought, would that be a correct kind of like brief analysis of that type of therapy?
That's a component. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about that. But it depends on I've got a sore knee,
Yeah.
which I do all the time. I
Yeah.
know it's because of arthritis and
Yeah. Yeah. It's different.
where I feel tension in the shoulder, depending on where in the shoulder,
Yeah.
that's a sign of stress.
Fair enough.
And so then that's the signal to me, there is something that's causing you stress. What is it?
Okay.
What might you not have noticed that is causing that stress?
Yeah.
What emotion might you be experiencing that is leading to that sensation in the body? So it basically is allowing the body to alert me.
Yeah. Okay. That's fascinating. And you found some pretty good results and benefits from that?
Yeah, yeah, just that now I'm more aware of the language and in a way, the music that of my body when it's speaking to me. I now can hear it when previously I didn't even know that language or music existed.
It's, that's true.
Well, so I get that, and I see emotions oftentimes in a very different way
Okay.
because now I can see the interaction of one on the other and vice versa.
Okay. Maybe a little bit less judgmental on those emotions or yourself?
No,
Uh,
I'm not.
eh,
I'm not going
Fair
to
enough.
pretend.
I'm not going to pretend. Fair enough.
I'd love to say yes.
Yeah.
Um, but I know that I'm still my own worst critic,
Oh, yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
and
Ah.
that's just, I know that. So I'm not going to lie and say, "Oh yeah, I don't have judgment." Or
Of course I do. Of course I do. That's right. I wouldn't be John if I wasn't.
I wouldn't have to advocate for myself.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm doing it because the reality is that resources are scarce out there, particularly in the mental health field.
Yeah.
There's a stigma attached. The same thing exists for still to this day, and we're getting better, but it still exists for mental health issues. But we still have people who will minimize the severity of mental illnesses by saying, mocking in a way OCD, by when they repeat something, oh, don't mind me, it's just my OCD talking and things like that.
Yeah.
It's very belittling of people who live with that, often with debilitating effect.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's definitely dismissive when used in those contexts.
Those are realities. I have learned, and many people, and probably yourself, and not who works here about it, we have learned that in order to be heard, oftentimes in order to be treated, in order to be understood, we need to advocate for ourselves. And if we do not do it, no one else will.
That's true. No one's going to come to your door and say, "Hey, I noticed you're bipolar. Let go get this looked after." Yeah. I'm here to help you.
But the other part of that equation is this: not everybody has that wherewithal. Not everybody has the gumption to do that. Sometimes when we speak, we're doing it not just for ourselves. We're doing it in recognition that there are others who are like us, who are unable to speak for themselves. And maybe when I rattle the cage, that benefits somebody else. That's my hope, perhaps pie in the sky hope, but it's the one that I have.
Yeah. You and I both have. I think being able to talk about these things and be able to bring them and shine them to light is the idea needs to be that we do need to speak up and we need to have more knowledge. And there's different types of doctors or physicians that deal with different types of illnesses. They have different specialities. And being informed is the best way a person can advocate for themselves.
Not one tool will work all the time.
Yeah.
I've got a wide variety of tools that I turn to. One that I recently discovered, which is helping a friend of mine tremendously with her anxiety, is a simple tool called Bare Roots, an app on Android and iOS. It's great. I've looked at it myself, and it's a wonderful little app. But things like that, I've made a point of looking, and because I look, I find, and what I find that benefits me becomes one of the many tools that I have. I also love to share what I have found so that others might gain. Last but not least, advocacy. If I did not advocate for myself, I would not be in the position that I'm in today. I would not be as articulate as I am today, because I would not have regained my cognition to the extent that I have. I am light years away from where I was, but I am not too far from falling back. I know that my own vigilance is necessary to maintain where I am today.
Yeah. It's been such a wonderful conversation. It's been so enlightening. It's so great talking to you because you have such a wealth of wisdom. It was hard for me to keep this to 30 minutes, which is why I didn't.
That's what editing's for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. I just might make that 2 parts. I'm not quite sure. What do you want to say to the audience before we go?
Do not be afraid to be vulnerable, and certainly do not be afraid to advocate for yourself. Don't take no as an answer. You can advocate without being loud and obnoxious.
Yeah, you can be kind about it.
But advocate for yourself. If you think something could be done differently, ask.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. You don't, how can I say that? If something's not working or you don't know, you have to ask. It is, especially in the doctor-patient relationship, that communication is absolutely vital. And so the doctor needs to know if it's working or if it's not working. He needs to know yes or no, you do or you don't like. And it's that honesty and that transparency and that, what about this over here and what about that can get you on a quicker path. But I truly believe that. So, you know what? That wraps up our episode of the Wellness Education Network. Our guest here, John Dickson, had so much to say, I just couldn't stop. And again, if you guys believe that today's the last day that for your life, we need you. We do need you, and you got to call 911 or 988 or whatever your regional equivalent is, because you just haven't found who you are, and whatever is going on inside, you can look for the professionals and start getting on a recovery journey and looking for the ways that work for you to be well. And when you are well, that's the person we want. That's the person we need. That can bring value. You can educate us, you can inspire us, and you can inform us. And that's what we need. Thank you very much. Thanks for being awesome.
Thanks for watching. Have you read or used any of the resources that John used to manage your mental health condition? Do you have any recommendations that helped you? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're looking for more wellness education videos, be sure to check out our next video on screen now. Consider subscribing to hear more wellness education videos. Help us get to our first 250 subscribers and consider supporting the channel by buying us a coffee using the link in the description below. Thanks for being our friends, and thanks for being awesome.